What's up? ¿Qué pasó, mis amigos? What's going on, everybody in the Call of Duty scene? I'm IHOLDSHIFT, and today we've got ourselves the Day 2 recap, breaking things down for you of what you may have missed, or maybe you didn't know that you missed that you actually did. So let's just not, without any further delay, get you into the recap. Again, we do these every single day of the Pro League Qualifiers. If you enjoy it, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell to know when you get notifications, pop your morning coffee in while you're eating some breakfast, getting ready for the games, and get caught up as we move through the rest of the week. Let's dig back to what the placements looked like going into today, however, as again, Pool A was shaping up to be probably one of the more stock ones, as RECIPROCITY was up top, but the surprise kind of from Enigma 6, both of them sitting at 1-0, Team Sween sitting in the middle. This pool, after day one, looked to be completely even and up to grabs. Not a very big differential between the top and the bottom. Today would be a very pivotal day to try to gain some separation if the teams could. Pool B was interesting as the Europeans, and of course, vamos! The Heretics looking super solid. You gotta love it, man. Oh, mis amores. I love the Heretics, dude. I don't know what it is about them. They just play with so much energy, so much passion. You have to feel the love for the Spanish community, and goodness gracious that they didn't ever look good in their first day. They were looking to hold on to a top-notch spot, but of course we have that game versus Envy. Meanwhile, in Pool C, Midnight Esports was the big surprise. Again, a team that we kind of had our eye on, saying that this is a team to not just throw to the wayside. This is a good team, and they proved it in day one, going 2-0. They would have some pivotal matchups, though, coming into day two, which would really determine how well they would set themselves up for a potential qualifier spot. And then in Pool D, the Australians came out with a fire from down under. Goodness gracious, crikey me. I'm going to get a lot of flame for that accent. Movie Star Riders also sitting at 2-0, but again, we talked about Movie Star Riders and how those two games that they won, they should have won, really. I mean, it should have been close, and they were. They won both those games 3-2 against other teams that we anticipate be near the bottom of the pool. So we'll see how they fare going into today. And of course, as I'm sure most of you have already looked at, or at least you want to know, let's take a look at what exactly the pool standings are after today. So in Pool A, RECIPROCITY would keep their spot, but it's not convincing, as there are 3 teams sitting at 2-1 in Pool A. One of those not being Enigma 6. We'll talk about it. In Pool B, this was a little bit more of an interesting pool. Again, Heretics was up here. They would lose today versus Team Envy, so Team Envy would be up top. G2 Esports still in the mix. Fact Revolution, having lost to G2, would slide down a little bit further. And of course, Lightning Pandas, look where they're situated. We'll talk about it. And then of course, as we get to Pool C, this one was where Midnight really showed up, and they showed off today, able to lock in a 4-0 and also clinching a spot in the Pro League Qualifiers, as nobody else in that pool can hit 4-2 that Midnight Esports has already beaten. So as we go into Pool D, Mindfreak would continue on the same run, still sitting as our second undefeated team at 4-0 at least, and of course Envy 2-0, but they have not locked in a spot yet. There are still a couple of scenarios. Mindfreak would have to prove themselves if they wanted to secure a spot in the Pro League Qualifiers, but of course they're setting themselves up for success. Let's jump back over and take a little bit more of a descriptive look at Pool A. Again, RECIPROCITY, Team Sween, and Project 18, Teddy Rex's squad, all sitting at 2-1. RECIPROCITY is our first team listed up. I want to take a little bit of a closer look at Wuskin, Tommy, Zedge, Johnny, and Dens, as of course they came out strong, having defeated Team Sween at a very convincing 3-0 in day one. Day two, they had that pivotal matchup versus the top 2 seeds, at least the top 2 placers at the moment in the pool, as Enigma 6 would be giving them a test, and it was a test. Enigma 6 had this one locked in the bag, but it would be a pretty considerable throw from the group. They would drop actually a 1-5. They were up 5-1 in the Search and Destroy. RECIPROCITY wouldn't go away. They would come back and complete that little bit of a surge. They were up 2-0. Enigma 6 fought right back, looking for the reverse sweep, and it would be a reverse kind of sweep for the reverse sweep. Regardless, RECIPROCITY clinched out when they needed to. And Enigma 6, you had to feel a little bit hurt because they could have closed this one down. But here's the little bit of a good news for Enigma 6 is the fact that Team Divine, out of nowhere, would come up and beat Team RECIPROCITY at a 3-0 scoreline. What? How did this happen? This was off stream, and as I was seeing the results pop on Gamepedia, this was my face the entire time. It was a big yikesers. I don't know what the heck happened. How do you 3-0 Team Sween and beat what was arguably the second best team in the pool in Enigma 6 and then lose to Team Divine. This puts this pool in complete shambles. They have FaZe Clan Black tomorrow, as well as FaZe Clan themselves, the double FaZe in day 3. They should be able to win both of those, as FaZe Clan Black hasn't looked good. Regular FaZe has looked not even close to where they should. And then, of course, Project 18 later. But you take a look at those standings, everything's very, very close. And now, with that loss, with that 3-way tie up top, Team Teddy is in the conversation for a top 2 spot. And honestly, as you take a look at them, Teddy Rex's squad of Project 18, technically, you would have liked to have seen them be 3-0 after what they've shown up against. FaZe Clan Black should have been a win. They lost 1-3. They're able to beat Team Divine and then get their redemption run against FaZe after what happened to them at Vegas, at an 0-3 in pools at Vegas. They would win 3-1 against them here, but they have their 3 hardest games coming up, 2 of which are tomorrow or in day 3, as they have Team Sweet and Enigma 6. So they need to really realistically, if they want to fight for a top 2 spot, they need to win 2 of the next 3 games. They need to find a way to go 4-2 to try to force some kind of a draw scenario. I don't see them going a full 5-1. I don't see them winning out all 3, but it would be good for them to go 4-2. Otherwise, it's looking like Project 18, as you look back at the pools, has put themselves in a spot that should lock in a playoff contention spot. It just depends on what FaZe Clan Black does and what Team Divine does. Both of those teams have put themselves in a spot to fight for a playoff spot, but it just comes down to how they will actually be able to muster that at the back end of things. Let's switch back and take a look a little bit more descriptively at Pool B. Again, this was a group that was very dominated by Heretics and Fact Revolution. As you look more in depth at it, G2 and Team Envy have thrown themselves even more in the middle of the mix, splitting the difference between Heretics and Fact Revolution based on record and map differential. And I want to start off with Team Envy first, because we already looked at Heretics. We know that they look good. They would go up against Envy here as well in day 2. This was the only game that Envy had today. They would just be able to come back with the reverse sweep against the Heretics. It looked like it was going to be an easy 3-0 for Heretics. Honestly, it really, really did. Envy started off slow. They started off disjointed, and then eventually their slayers would slay, their leaders would lead, and they came back for the reverse sweep. It was a very, very fun set to watch, and really the maps were pretty lopsided one side or the other. It started off pretty convincingly for Heretics, ended pretty convincingly for Envy. That definitely reaffirms my belief that this is those world champs that we wanted to see. And as you look at their schedule, they're through what should likely be the 2 hardest tests in their schedule. This is a team that could potentially go 6-0. Their biggest tests from here would be Lightning Pandas and Fact Revolution. At least that's what you would figure on paper, as again, they did win against Lightning Pandas 3-1 in Vegas. So how about coming back there? But of course, having lost in the losers bracket run of champs by Lightning Pandas, this would be the coveted 3rd matchup, I guess, for them on land. So some familiarity here. Just kind of comes down to, have they done enough to learn about their opponent and come in to actually take care of them when it matters most? Of course, we anticipate them beating Tainted Minds and Giants. Maybe Fact Revolution is an issue, but as you take a look, that sets up Team Envy for what will likely be a for sure qualifier spot. You have to figure they win a number of those games, not just a couple, but even if they only do win a couple, they'll at least be a playoff team. They're probably out of the running as far as being eliminated, but talk about a team that's not out of the running for being eliminated. Lightning Pandas, 0-2 to start. And of course, yes, they did lose to Heretics, who are really starting to establish and affirm that this is a solid team, possibly the best in this pool on any given day. But the 1-3 loss to Vodafone Giants on a map set where Vodafone Giants didn't look good, Lightning Pandas looked worse. Score streaks were not used well. Specialists were not used well. Giants would win a 6-1, I think it was, on the hard point. Like, it did not look good whatsoever for Lightning Pandas, including some desk punching from Mad Cat at the end of that set. And I would say rightfully so, because they still have to go up against Envy and G2, and you can't shrug off based on how LP has played. You can't shrug off Fact Revolution, but also you can't shrug off Tainted Minds. This could very well be 4 very close games. Lightning Pandas needs to get themselves figured out, because they're in the possibility of being eliminated. Already having lost 2 games, they essentially have to win 3 of their next 4. It would be better if they could find a way to win all 4, but I just don't know if they have it in them. Flat out, it kind of looks like they might just be done at this point in time. As we switch back over to our main brackets to kind of wrap up that conversation. And as we transition, a team that has already locked in their spot of the Pro League. The first team to do so, and probably one of the bigger surprises as you looked at it before the groups had started. Based on their gameplay, Midnight Esports looks absolutely insane. They look really, really strong. And yeah, there were some controversies in some of their games that they played, including the 3-2 win over overtime, stuff like that. But regardless, this squad is for real, and they proved it as they would be able to take down Pittsburgh Knights, who's the team that I want to focus on here, as of course this was a contest for a lot of the roster mania that we saw after Vegas. They would beat Mazer Gaming in their first matchup relatively easily. This day was a pivotal one as they saw Midnight Esports first and got a very good look at Midnight Esports as they took a loss at the hands of ME at a scoreline of 3-1, and then they would actually be able to turn around and pretty much stomp on 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves is, I don't know what it is. It's not pretty, though. I'm unfortunately have to say, it's just not looking so great. But regardless, Pittsburgh Knights, as you look forward, as their potential lock-in for the #2 spot in the Pro League Qualifiers, they've got 3 probably good games coming up. Accelerate Gaming's no team to sneeze at, and Overtime also. Both of those teams sitting at 2-2. They have done the work that needed to. Team Spacely is the one that's really kind of everyone's looking at as how good is this team after starting 0-2. They win their 1 game today. They've got a couple more tomorrow. But I want to also focus more on this Overtime squad, who again handed Team Spacely their first loss at a 3-0 scoreline. They would take Accelerate Gaming the distance to 5, who's a good team, keep in mind. And they would take Midnight Esports to a full 5, who we already know is a good team. But they're able to dominantly take down Mazer, which really in my book says that this team is a tier above where they were at Vegas. Definitely. They've got 100 Thieves tomorrow. It would be a very easy win, I think, just based on how 100 Thieves has played. If Overtime, we haven't seen them on stream at all. So I'm excited to see what this squad has to bring against Overtime Esports. And then, or pardon me, against 100 Thieves. And then they've got that pivotal matchup versus Pittsburgh Knights. This team is not out of the running for a top 2 spot, people. If they win those next 2, we could potentially have some kind of a tie scenario, and it would only be if Accelerate Gaming goes 4-2, because if they beat Pittsburgh Knights, that would be the tie-breaking win against Pittsburgh Knights, who is probably the best bet as far as who might end up being 4-2 in the pool at the end of things. So we might see Overtime Esports as the #2 team. I love it, dude. Viva la France. It's absolutely insane to see this go on. Let's back up and take a look and wrap things up here, as Pool D has been exactly what you would anticipate for the Wild West, even though I guess perspectively they'd be in the far eastern side from left to right. I don't know. I was never good with the latitudes and longitudes and all that stuff. But Pool D has been crazy. Mindfreak, unexpectedly, we weren't sure what to expect with Buzzo and Excite being transitioned, one off the team, one into coaching. They're 4-0 after the day. UIU wins their game, so they're 2-1. And the big question became down what would happen with Evil Geniuses and Red Reserve. Evil Geniuses, after that loss to Mindfreak, it was a close game. Their only game they played, and it was one of the first ones yesterday. They had some time to recuperate, and Evil Geniuses able to handle business against Movie Star Riders as well as Red Reserve. These are games that they really needed to win. Of course, the Movie Star Riders, they were 2-0. Were they for real? Were they not? Evil Geniuses definitively said, no, they're not for real. And then that matchup versus Red Reserve would be a big one when it came down to what they would look like for them to move into a top 2 spot potentially. That 3-2 win would put them in a spot to lock it in. As you take a look at their next 3 games, Nation of Power on day 3 should be an easy walkthrough. Imperial, absolutely beatable considering how they handled Red Reserve and Mindfreak. And then UIU, kind of the same storyline. I actually have UIU and Imperial just like kind of like here. If Imperial's here, UIU's like here. Evil Geniuses needs to be up here though if they want to rock a top 2 spot. This is potential for them to go 5-1 in the pools, and that would lock them in, of course, a spot in the top 2, as Red Reserve is no longer able to do that, and that's going to be our next team up in contest. The only real team actually look back at the polls is UIU to potentially do that, and they've got a couple of games ahead of them. We'll talk about them probably tomorrow. Of course, Red Reserve, though, they need to start fighting for a spot to make sure they're not in the bottom 2, as you, of course, saw. It's pretty narrow. 1-2 for Red Reserve, 1-3 for Imperial, 0-3 for Nation of Power. Fortunately, they do have Nation of Power and Movie Star Riders coming up in day 4. But before they get there, they've got a big proving test against Mindfreak in day 3. That's their only game that they have. The SMGs really came to life for Red Reserve. I think they could definitely take a go at Mindfreak. For me, it just comes down to, can they play Search and Destroy better? That has not looked so great for them, as of course they lost the game 5 against Evil Geniuses, but I believe they also lost the Search and Destroy to UIU, if not also the Imperial. So they need to do some work as far as, at least, if that's not the case, it has not looked at their strongest, at least what we saw today during Evil Geniuses' set. So they need to try to bone that up, and they need to try to prepare as best as possible for Mindfreak, who have done really well in Search and Destroy. Their respawn has looked pretty decent, so you have to hope that they can pull out a win. If you're a Red Reserve fan, it would put them in a good spot to potentially finish up closer to the top 2, at least put them in the running for it. They would have to win out, I think, though, to get a chance to do it. They would have to finish 4-2. So A kind of a tall task for Red Reserve, definitely, for the finishing the top 2. Still not out of the weeds, though, for a bottom 2. As we finish things up here, again, we do not have any real depict pictures as far as who's going to be going home or who's going to be staying. Of course, we have some considerations. Nation of Power and Mazer, they have to have a really solid last couple of days. Otherwise, after tomorrow, they might just be eliminated. Mindfreak with the potential to close in another Pro League spot. And everything's up for grabs over in Pool A. So tomorrow is a very fun day to watch. A lot of storylines, a lot of things on the line as far as qualifying and eliminating. So as we go through, make sure you keep your eyes open. And if you want to follow along, you can, of course, join me in Discord. We had a couple of people hanging out and talking games, kind of showing our surprise, sharing some betting things that we wanted to go through as far as who's the proper people to bet on, as far as if you're interested in that arena. And of course, to all of mis amigos in España, well, muy bien. We cannot wait to see more of the Spanish squads, without a doubt. Of course, I've been Shift, you've been you. If you like the channel, like the content, make sure you hit the sub button. Get those notifications when we go live. You can follow me also on Twitter to get notifications when these videos pop up. And until next time, we'll catch you for Day 3's recap. Hope that you keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.